300 already through
The
there.
screenshot.
Don't worry, just go live and then we'll worry about lag later.
Multi-levels?
On Facebook and YouTube?
It's
So-
about a 20-foot ceiling, so
So,
you got a lot of wall space.
so can we say, welcome to the family on Facebook and on YouTube, to Kemetic Ascension for March 1st, 2020. Can you imagine that it is already March?
Oh my gosh.
I just stopped writing 2019 last week.
Oh no, I like writing 2020. And everybody
I
writes
just stopped writing and scratching it out. So you should know that the sun is coming. That's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
I know that we, the people of the sun, truly struggle sometimes during the winter. This portion of the year, from February into March, right before the spring, is often also the part where people begin to struggle emotionally. You know that we do this because we are continuing to build the family of the Shrine of Ma'at. Reach out to each other. The sun is coming. 3-4 weeks you're going to be enjoying and basking in the sun. But make sure that you are speaking to people, because this period tends to be a little difficult. Make sense?
Yes.
There's no sort of vacation period, no days off built into the schedule
Until the
between
end.
President's Day
And the
until,
end.
oh, you're like,
The end of May.
yeah, the long period.
Okay, tell me about it.
So people tend to struggle. Now, the one good thing is that we've had a very mild winter, so some of that might be mitigated this year. Anyway, what a strange way to begin Kemetic Ascension. I just want you to be mindful of each other so that we can move. So welcome to Kemetic Ascension once again for March 1st, 2020. Welcome to the Facebook family, and really welcome to the YouTube family. Anik and I have been endeavoring to, even with the technology that we have, which is, I should say, it's not really where we want it to be, but we're trying to do more. And so there's been a large group of people on YouTube that don't use Facebook as much, who have been asking us to do more on YouTube. So today should be the first day that we are streaming on both mediums simultaneously. That is amazing. We have a very large family on Facebook, and believe it or not, a large family on YouTube that has just been waiting. We have a large number of folks who are subscribed to our channel, and we haven't been putting anything on that channel. Oh, we're talking about nearly 20,000 people. And so to be able to speak to the family all over the world, that family that recognizes that here's the echo of ancient Africa and is trying to orient their steps based on the sound of our ancestors' voice, it's always a good thing we can reach more of them, is it not?
Yes.
And so, Tuan Tur, thanks to the Creator for allowing us to do that. So please make sure you let us know that you can see us and hear us clearly. I'm not just talking about posting a video on YouTube. We are live on both mediums, and so that'll be a lot of fun. So you should know, for those of you who are joining us online, that we already had a long conversation. Kemetic Ascension begins at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we talk to each other. It's one of the, I think, the most enjoyable portions of Kemetic Ascension, because we just talk about those things that we are contending with, struggling with, being challenged by, and those things that we have had victory and dominion over. So the family can celebrate, the family can support, the family can laugh, the family can cry, the family can heal together. That is the reason why Kemetic Ascension is of so important, of so much major importance. Because you may know that Anika and I actually started the Shrine of Ma'at. Now I guess it's almost 11 years ago, I believe. But we hadn't actually gone into sort of the public phase until about, I think, 4 years ago. About 4 years, when we actually started to have initiates and started having Kemetic Ascension. And so it's really important that the family grows and the family is doing major things together. So I'm so excited that we're doing that. And as we grow, not only do we have a new initiatory class that started last week, Ankh and Ma'at to all of you. We have some of our new initiates in the room. It is amazing that they are going to be full members of the Shrine of Ma'at. I am so pleased that you are here. At the same time, Jabari Nika must be crazy. At the same time, we have members of the Wenwet, members of the Shrine of Ma'at priesthood on their priesthood journey. So not only do we have new initiates, we have new priests. And so this is a really, really exciting time for the Shrine of Ma'at family. It's a very exciting time. So if you see Brother Jabari looking tired, you know why. By the way, you're going to look in the audience and see people, wow, what? Well, they look a little tired too, because we're doing so many things at the same time. Just yesterday, we had a magnificent moment of fellowship as we toured the Brooklyn Museum. It was a private tour for members of the Wenwet, of the priesthood, and we just had a lot of fun, which was also good. Not only did we talk and learn, but we had fun. Mm-hmm. And so that is always enjoyable. We truly enjoy spending time with the members of the family, and that makes this so much more exciting. So many of us have been doing this on our own for so long. And when I say on our own, you know what I mean. You've probably been the one in your family, right? Mm-hmm. Something happens in blackness and they want to know your opinion. You know what I'm saying? You were the one that has to analyze blackness for them. Other than that, they might just think you're a little strange.
Yeah.
And that's generally how it works. I know that's how it has worked in my family for a very long time. Whenever they make a decision that is clearly something that is related to their culture and their ethnicity, they want to talk to you about it. You know, maybe there's a Black History Month day at church and they have an outfit, so they're going to send you the text. You know what I'm talking about. You get that text.
Mm-hmm. They ain't your friends. They need you for that stuff.
They love you dearly, but they know you are a little different than them. That's the role that I have played in my family. They'll say something controversial at the table and I'm there and they look at me like, uh-oh, is he going to jump on me? Is he going to jump on me? That's how it's been. Now, of course, I've mellowed, so I jump on my family less than I used to, right? I give them more love than I used to. Before I was on attack mode all the time. I told you about Thanksgiving. That's probably the worst example of attack mode. My family celebrates Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a holiday that has extreme problems. It is extremely problematic for virtually everyone, including the European. Including the European. And I remember coming downstairs one day on Thanksgiving. As soon as my extended family came into the house, I ran upstairs. Painted my face red for the blood of our ancestors. I had created a diorama of a slave ship, complete with small bodies of writhing Africans. And as soon as my mother put the turkey on the table, I slammed it on the table and said, "This is what you're celebrating. The annihilation of the Native American and the subjugation, rape, and murder of the African." And my father, instead of yelling at me, just said, go upstairs. Go upstairs. No, I didn't. He said, "You'll get food, go upstairs, go upstairs.
In your room.
Yes. We just have to sequester this member of the family. So you have probably been that member of the family as well. I think I was still in high school, so maybe I was about 15 or 16. So that's in some ways you've probably been that member of the family too. And it might feel uncomfortable being that person, doing things a little differently.
No, my mother would have killed me.
Well, at least,
Yeah, I think most of our mothers would have killed us.
no, my family was,
That's so lenient. My mother would have.
they knew, you know why they sent me upstairs? Because they knew that if I was punished, I would take that punishment with relish. Because I would have seen it as them proving that they are implements of a white supremacist system. So that's why my father, having seen me do some of these things before, just said, go upstairs.
He's one of them words you over them.
Go upstairs.
Each
Go
one of them
upstairs. Go upstairs.
would have been
Go
like
upstairs.
that.
That's like now,
So-
my father, he'll say, good morning, Adrian, and I say, hey, how you doing, Papa? And he's like, and then I'll turn around and say, great rising. So now he says, great rising.
Wow, yeah.
Because
Because
you don't say good morning.
That's right.
anymore.
That's right. That's right. I have my mother will call me by my birth name and my chosen name.
Really?
You know, I have an aunt that calls me Corwin Jabari. She calls me Corwin
It
Jabari.
makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, and for a while I struggled with that. In my mellowing, I've actually recognized that she loved me as Corwin and she loves me as Jabari. And so I accept that. There are family members who refuse to use the name Jabari for years until I stopped answering them. She was never that person. From the day that I made my transition, that's what she was calling me. So now, how in the world can I beat her up for saying that? Does that make sense? So you have probably been that strange family member. That family member that hears the whisper of ancient Africa loudly, as the rest of them are either not hearing it at all, been desensitized against it, or are rapidly ignoring the call. You see the ones that are ignoring it too. You're the one that cannot ignore. So that can be an extremely lonely place. Can be a very lonely place. At least at the Shrine of Ma'at and at the Temple of Anu and at other institutions, you can be with the other people who hear what you hear. So that together we can heal this community that we are part of. And as we do that, those people who are hiding will realize they don't have to hide. And those people who have been desensitized against that call will recognize that their desensitization was programmed in them. And they'll rebel against it. This is of critical importance. When you shine, we all shine, family. When you shine, we all shine. The only reason why we see the moon in the night sky is because it is reflecting the rays of the sun. You will allow them to shine in the night sky when you come into your full luminance. And so I am so pleased that we're together. I'm so pleased that the Shrine of Ma'at family is growing. I'm so pleased that the Temple of Anu is growing. I'm so pleased that we're all doing this work together so that we can support each other and move forward in peace and power. So, he's okay. The question was about my father. You know, my father is ill. He has stage 4 metastatic kidney cancer. And so he's still pretty weak and still struggling, and my mother is really taking on a really heavy load, which really concerns me. After we were with the When Wet last night, Anika and I went to go see them. And even though he's still in pain and weak, he was still making jokes, which is good. My father is a jokester. He made lots of jokes, and we were watching the South Carolina primary come in, and every single time we saw the Democratic candidate speaking, both Anika and my father, by the way, both have strange sense of humor. They were trying to look at the black people around and say, see that person right there? That one is Oprah Winfrey's little cousin. Look, she look like Oprah Winfrey's little cousin. Like, no, she doesn't. Yes, she do. Yes, she do. Look at her chin. Wait till she turns. That's Oprah Winfrey's chin. The two of them together were doing something strange. Then my father said, ain't that Anthony Anderson? No, that's not Anthony Anderson. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. That dude with the Mets cap is Anthony Anderson, Dad. And the two of them were just having fun. So even though he's not feeling himself, it was good to be able to laugh together. And he begins, please keep him in your prayers, because he begins cancer treatment tomorrow. Tomorrow morning early, I'll be taking him to the oncologist. It's not going to be the really, really difficult radiation treatments that you may be familiar with. He's going to be doing some immunotherapy and also the stuff that he wouldn't have been able to do 15 years ago. Right. It just wouldn't have been available to him. And so we're really pleased that that's happening.
We'll send him some orchids and myrrh today.
Yes, and he is real. Oh, look who came in! Ankin Ma'ad. Ankin Ma'ad, a member of the Canoe Kensu has come in. And so let me just say that it's been difficult. You might know Jabari is always busy. I'm even more busy now, which is really bizarre. Because I did not think I had available time, but that time has been going to my father. And so it's been challenging. But it's been a blessed time. I've spent more time with him. You may know that I'm a consultant most of the time. Actually, right before it became clear that he was very sick, I had a position in Long Island. And there was a gap of 4 hours between my two teaching periods. So I would literally go to their house and spend 2 or 3 hours with them 2 or 3 times a week. Very unusual. It was in divine order. The Creator created that situation so that I would be there. And so I can see that now. I can see why that happened. So I'm pleased, and I am absolutely ready to help him fight.
But I pose the question also because while you always calling and asking for everybody else, you sometimes forget to ask for yourself.
Yes.
So we're gonna send him some Ankh and some today during.
Yes, we will. Please do. My father is looking forward to it. Yes.
And you.
Yes.
Yes. It's been tough. Yeah, it's been a little tough, but we're moving. So you know that when we start Kemetic Ascension, we must start it with that ritual that really recognizes the origin of our shrine. It recognizes the root of which we are a fruit on a large tree. And that root is the Shrine of Ptah. It is a shrine that Anika and I grew up in. And I say grew up in, you know that we were in our 20s when we first went there. But you know what I'm saying. It's when we had our African spiritual rebirth. It occurred there in the Shrine of Ptah. And the ceremony, the ritual that was created by our chief priest and elder at the Shrine of Ptah, Baba Heru Ankra Samad Se Ptah, who we mirror so much. He is literally like a member of our family. I'm talking about like my blood family. He's like my uncle, right? Let me say that we do that ceremony because we recognize it will assist us in doing the work that we've been put here to do. And so, what is the name of that ritual?
The opening of the way.
The opening of the way. Please stand for the opening of the way. And let me ask, is there someone that would like to lead us in the opening of the way?
All right, I'll do it today.
Looks like a bull capper is going to do it.
So we're going to stand in the praise of adoration. Left foot forward, right foot slightly back. Left hand forward, slightly higher in your right hand. And we'll begin by chanting the sacred sound of life, eternal life, the Ankh sound. So take a nice deep breath.
And harmonize.
And I was about to say, let's do it in harmony. Anashirak en Bethet.
Anetrak in Bethet.
Nuk en Bethet.
Nuk in Bethet.
Anashirak Hapi.
Anetrak Hapi.
Nuk Hapi.
Nuk Hapi.
Tuau Inter.
Tuau Inter.
Make you turn to the right. Anashirak Serket.
Anetrak Serket.
Nuk Serket.
Nuk Serket.
Anashirak Kepsenuf.
Anetrak Kepsenuf.
Nuk Kepsenuf.
Nuk Kepsenuf.
Tuau Inter.
Tuau Inter.
Anashirak Ast.
Anetrak Ast.
Nuk Ast.
Nuk Ast.
Anashirak Umset.
Anetrak Umset.
Nuk Umset.
Nuk Umset.
Tuau Inter.
Tuau Inter.
Make you turn to the right. Anashirak Neat.
Anetrak Neat.
Nuk Neat.
Nuk Neat.
Anashirak Tuamutef.
Anetrak Tuamutef.
Nuk Tuamutef.
Nuk Tuamutef.
Tuau Inter.
Tuau Inter.
Turn to the right. Anesharak Newt.
Anetrak Newt.
Nuke Newt.
Newt Newt.
Anesharak Geb.
Anetrak Geb.
Nuke Geb.
Newt Geb.
Tuau Inter.
Tuau Inter.
Anesharak Shu.
Anetrak Shu.
Shu. Shu. Shu. Shu. Nuke Shu. Anesharak Tef Newt.
Anetrak Tef Newt.
Tef
Newt. Tef Newt. Tef Newt. Tef Newt. Nuke Tef Newt.
Tuau Inter. Anesharak Paut Neteru.
Anetrak Paut Neteru.
Nuke Paut Neteru.
Nuke Paut Neteru.
Anesharak Enbu Neteru.
Anetrak Emu Neteru.
Nuke Enbu Neteru.
Nuke Emu Neteru.
Tuau Inter.
Tuau Inter.
And let's chant up the sound of life. Take your breath.
Tuau Inter. Oh, dwa, 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 dwa.
I see.
Wow. Wow. Dwa to him Netta Kepra for leading us in the opening of the way so ably. And I must say to you that I heard the harmony. I heard the harmony. It is wonderful when you harmonize together in chanting the word for everlasting divine life, something else happens. And so I think that it is so powerful to do that. I might have actually said to you, you've heard this story before, that when I was walking on 135th Street, I actually went into the space that the Rosicrucians had. Yes, the Rosicrucians are in Harlem. And ain't none of them look like us, except maybe one or two. And so I went there one day, and when I went upstairs to where they grabbed me and pulled me upstairs, by the way, when they saw my aunt. First they treat me like, can we help you? Just some dude that is walking around in Harlem. And then they saw my ankh, and then I realized that they were no longer looking at me. They were just staring at my ankh. And so I said, okay. You know, because I was asking about the books outside. So they stopped speaking. And so I remember saying, all right. And they said, who are you? And I said, well, I am the chief priest of the Shrine of Ma'at. The Kemetic shrine that is here in Harlem. And the sister that was there literally grabbed my hand and pulled me up the stairs. And I'm like, what is happening? Where am I going? And that's when I saw a group of at least 15 people, mostly the Tamhu, in fact all the Tamhu except her and me, chanting. They had a large ankh on a table with candles around it, and they were chanting ankh. And they then said to me, who are you? And when I said that who I was, and they said, lead us, teach us. Wow. It was amazing.
I'm your daddy.
It was amazing. I'm your daddy. Yes, that was out loud, Anika.
I didn't get much sleep last night.
We appreciate it.
She's like, did I say that out loud? Yes, you did.
That's okay.
And so as I was chanting, they said, we chant ankh. I said, that is a magnificent thing to chant. And so I was chanting the way I chant. And then I realized that they all did this.
What? That's creepy.
It was odd. It was really an unusual experience.
Like they stopped chanting just to watch you chant?
They wanted to see the way that I did it.
Well, because they're the greatest imitators.
Yes.
And they knew who you were.
Apparently now they did.
And so they got to stand back and watch.
Yeah.
Let me get this right.
And so they started chanting, but they did it in the manner that I did. And so I kind of left there very quickly because I thought it was a little strange.
Yeah.
And my ice cream was melting. But just, it was odd. It was odd. But what am I trying to say? I am saying that there are many of us who will chant Nam Yo Renge Kyo. There are many of us who will chant There are many of us who will chant Jesus, but we don't chant those divine channel words that were spoken before any of those other terms were spoken.
Two.
Before, prior to it.
That pointed finger about the mind.
Now, I'm not, look at my ring, right? I'm not saying that those other words don't have power. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, why not return to the source? Why not return to the source? This word is your birthright. And so we should remember it and use it in 2020 and beyond, when we have been put here to do important things. And so it's of critical importance for us to return to the source and use those terms, use those philosophies, use those cosmogonies that were created by our ancestors to allow us to live a divinely balanced life. And that is why chanting and doing ritual and being one of those descendants of the greatest of people on the planet is important. And so hopefully you will do that. Hopefully you will do the opening of the way. Hopefully you just don't do the opening of the way when you're watching Kemetic Ascension. And I know there's some of you that just watch. You know, we can see you. We can see you. Don't just watch. Get up and do it yourself, because it is a ceremony that reminds you just how powerful you are. When you realize how powerful you are, you recognize that none of the challenges that are put before you are absolutely worth your medal. That you can absolutely surmount those challenges. And so I want you to remember to do the opening of the way, because that is what it fundamentally does. So, in addition to the opening of the way, when we begin Kemetic Ascension, we also chant Hesi. Someone tell me, what is Hesi?
Words
Words of power.
Words of power.
Words that heal, words that
Words that
invoke.
heal. Words that invoke.
The energies of the Netzer, the Netzeru, the ancestors. Yes, all of that.
yourself.
What was that? You said something back there.
I said also yourself adding to that, because all those powers are within you.
Too.
You are
Now,
within many universes.
Think about what invoke means. Think about what invoke means. The definition of invoke is to cite or appeal as an authority for action or in support of an argument. But remember that the beginning of the term is invoke. So what you are doing is you are appealing to the authority that sits within you. It will allow you to access some things, access an energy that is within you and without you. And so this is of critical importance. Please remember to do so. Does that make sense? Was there something you wanted to say? Anika, you good? Okay. And so, we are also so honored to be able to have people in our shrine now who focus on this. We have our Hesi masters, and that is amazing that they are here, that they are prepared to assist us in invoking divine energy and calling that power into ourselves. So, what do you have planned for us today? They always look at each other like, oh, who's gonna speak?
So we're going to do the chant that we actually did at the museum yesterday. The words Atah Sekhmet Nefer Atum, Atah Sekhmet
It's good to see you.
Imhotep. So the creator calling forth the Nefer Atum, the blossoming of the lotus, the coming forth from the crown. And then Patat Sekhmet Imhotep, which was the great one who healed. He did so many things. And so we're going to start with that chant.
One more time.
Patah, Sekhmet, Imhotep. We'll do it together. And then you can just come in.
Sekhmet, Neferatu, Ptah, Sekhmet, Imhotep, Ptah, 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 Sekhmet, But
Powerful. Oh, that was powerful.
Could have taken a picture
Loved it.
and created a meme. You know those memes on the internet? And the meme would say, when the Hesse get hot. That's all. When the Hesse get hot. When the Hesse get hot. When the Hesse get hot. When the Hesse get hot, Isfet gets
Turn on
not.
the air conditioner.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Now let me say to you, you are galvanizing divine energy that is within you and without you. When you come into divine harmony with that energy, what can you do? And so that particular Hesse is a oldie but goodie. It's one of the Hesse that we would chant at the shrine of Ptah. You see the prominent place that Ptah is placed in, right? And so it comes from our shrine of origin. And it is so powerful. We were chanting for those of you who just turned on and said, what is going on? I'm getting into this, but I don't know what they're saying. Ptah Sekhmet Imhotep. Ptah Sekhmet Neferatum. Very simple Hesse. Yeah, I think that there's more incense over here. So basically what it does is it allows us to take divine energy and use it primarily for healing and divine wisdom. You know that Ptah is a foundational deity. Ptah is sometimes known as the nectar that hammers out all of humanity on an anvil. And so that is one of the things that you're going to hear Ptah doing. Now, there were times that Sekhmet was considered his consort. Sekhmet, that image of divine healing. Here is Sekhmet. She who is powerful. That's what her name means, Sekhmet. Sekhem is power. So if you say Sekhmet, it's meant to mean she who is powerful.
That's she.
Now understand that Sekhmet is the daughter of Ra. And she gets sent sometimes by Ra to bring fiery healing. To place things back into balance. That is who Sekhmet is. And then there are times that it is considered that Ptah, and by the way, I should also let you know that this is one of the staffs of Ptah. Sometimes it's helpful to have some visual guides, right? So this is a staff of Ptah. Ptah is often known to carry an ankh with the Jed column. This is the Jed. Some of you might not be familiar with the Jed. It is a symbol, oh, and it's in my ankh, because my name is Heru, Jed, and Ma'at, and Ra. So can you see the Jed here? These four pillars that sit together, they symbolize the backbone of Asar. And then you see that Ptah has control, has dominion over those things that might harm him. And so he stands with it in front of him, often like this. You know that Ptah is that symbol that is really the origin of where they get the Oscar award from.
Yes.
With no credit. With no credit. So just understand that Ptah and Sekhmet are powerful, but then sometimes it is said that their offspring is that divine being who was originally a human being, who sits on his seat. Imhotep was one of the world's first recorded doctors, one of the world's first recorded architects, one of the world's first recorded poets, one of the world's first recorded administrators. So he had the title, sometimes you'll hear them call this title the vizier. Vizier is not an ancient African word. The word we use for that is jati. Say jati with me.
Jati.
So he was the jati of Kemet. He was like the prime minister. And so understand, say again?
spell Jati?
Jati is usually spelled T-J-A-T-I. Jati. That's the role that Imhotep played. He was the Jati. Right? That's usually how it's spelled.
That's a spelling, but we pronounce it Jati? Not
Yes.
Jati?
You usually hear
T and J
Jati.
is-
T-J-A-T-I.
It's like chatty.
It's like Chati, really,
Okay.
more than anything.
Chatty.
And so that is the sort of the administrative role of Kemet. And he played that role. He was a very, very important individual. And when he dies, it is believed that he was deified. And so the three of them are a powerful triad. But then Ptah, Sekhmet often are also described as having another offspring, someone named Nefer Atum. You are going to see him as the one that has a large lotus flower on his head. Now, I'm going to say to you that Nefer Atum was very popular in Kemet during the New Kingdom, but you are not going to hear people in the modern day, as much talk as there is about the Neteru, you're not going to hear his name being used very much. Nefer Atum. Now, what does Nefer mean?
Beautiful.
Beautiful, and Atum is
The hidden one.
the hidden one. Well, you could call Atum the hidden one, although Amen is more the hidden one. Atum.
One of the phases of the moon.
It is one of the phases.
So you go from the, I guess, the level to the next level to the next level. To the rising sun, the brightest, and then a tomb.
Yes, that's one of the things you can do.
Atum also, Atum is dealing with, in the myth idea, it's similar to Atum. It's like Atum, it's like the creation power. It is the source of all things. So that beautiful source, a beautiful creator, you know, because remember, I think in the myth, isn't it, in that creation story, Ptah rises out as the mound out of the Nun.
Yes.
And then Atum came out and sat upon his head and became the tongue.
Go ahead.
The speech. Yeah, I believe that's how it goes.
So,
That's right, Abu.
Can you tell?
That's right, Abu.
Can you tell that Abu Ames has been studying for a long time?
Absolutely.
So yes, this is Nefer Atum. This is Nefer Atum he's referring to. One of the creation he creates in beauty. And so this is a beautiful description of Nefer Atum. He comes out of the waters. That's why you see the lotus flower on his head. And Atum comes and sits. Nefer Atum sits on his head.
On the crown.
Right.
And Atum.
So this is a beautiful description. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. Good job. So I want you all, this is homework for Kemetic Ascension. Yes, you have homework. I want you all to research Nefer Atum. Why am I saying research Nefer Atum? Because with all of the Neteru that we mention, that we discuss today in 2020, the one that we don't mention much is Nefer Atum. I need to put some more hooks on this. The one we don't mention much is Nefer Atum.
Yeah.
And becomes the tongue
Yeah, that's
or
good.
the voice
I think
or
that's
the,
it.
which brings forth life
Yeah.
in another way.
And if
Do you have it on
put
there?
together Atum and Atum.
That's so exactly.
Actually, that's where they get the word Adam
Right.
from.
You go do it.
There it is.
Everything comes from, that's right, I get it, science.
So,
Another good book I recommend for you to study the concept that it might bring you down, and it will show that we also understood the science and spirituality is Stolen Legacies by George M.J.
Oh, Stolen Legacy.
we are going to mention him today. So you know that Abu Ames is in divine order as he begins to
We are
talk
in
about.
tune with the other.
Yes. So I want you to understand that this is a powerful, powerful description. Do your research on Nefer Atum. Don't get it all from Ames now. Come on now. Because he's one of those names that we don't mention very much. And if you are one of those people those blessed individuals that hear the call of ancient Africa loudly, you should be acquainted with each of the ancient manifestations of the divine as mentioned by your ancient African ancestors. Does that make sense?
Two.
It's not going to be enough to just always call Asar and Ast and Heru. Those are magnificent powers. But you should be prepared to mention the discrete movements of the Netiru. You know how they say that the Inuit people that were once derogatory called Eskimos? Eskimos are a derogatory term, by the way. They're the Inuit people. Do you know that they say that the Inuit people have, I think they say 200 words for snow? And most people in the West just say snow. Maybe they say sleet. Maybe they say hail. Maybe 3 names, that's it. But if you live amongst something long enough, you recognize its most discrete differences. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, your Kemetic ancestors lived in spirit for so long that they had discrete names for its most slight alterations and vibrations. So that when you recognize that you are describing slight alterations in the harmonic energy or vibrations, and you have another name for it, you should be able to literally tune in to that divine energy and use it in your life. So you must be aware of the names of the Netiru, the powers of the Netiru, and the way that your ancestors viewed the Netiru in order to truly use them. Does that make sense?
Two.
Think of it almost as having a large family with a bunch of brothers and sisters. And you coming home from school and you get into a fight. You're not going to call the smallest brother, are you?
Nope.
You're going to call the big one to come help.
Two.
So in this instance, imagine that you have to use the right name for the right purpose. And that is understanding the Netiru. I also have been alerted that our shrine elder is in the room. Baba Haru Ankh Ra Samad Sepata. I don't know if he was here to see the Hesi.
I think he was, because he said dua.
So I need to say, once again, if he didn't hear me say it, that this Hesi is one that was formulated in our shrine of origin, the shrine of Ptah. So we say dua, 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 dua for his work. Dua, 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 dua for his walk. Dua, 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 dua for him remaining consistent over all of these years. His consistency is what shines on us. And so for him to grace us, you know that he likes to do stuff on the internet now, right? Yeah. He's calling himself the internet, as he would say. He's the Ankh monk, he says. So he's a little bit more cloistered than he used to be. But he peeks out online. So we are honored that he's peeking out at our assemblage, an assemblage that in many ways he created. Because were it not for the work that he did, for the energy that he placed, for the blessings that he has been in the life of Anika and Jabari, the Shrine of Ba'at would not exist. And even more clearly, when I asked Baba in 1998 to be a priest, and he gave me that really cold response, he said, "We'll see." We'll see. He said, "We'll see." It was 13 years later that he actually said to us that it was our time to actually begin to move forward into leadership, into the legacy. So if he had not said that, the Shrine of Ba'at would not exist. So we say dua, dua, dua to Baba. Can we give him some ankhs and some myrrh as well, since he's there? So let's chant. So please just make sure that that we lift him up, because he's done this work for so long, and it can be a thankless kind of job, right? So we say dua to him once for all the things that he's did. And I hope that we did that Hesi some justice
Some
today.
ma'at.
Some ma'at. We actually pulled it out the way that it's supposed to sound. So let's continue. You know that at this part of our service, at this part of Kemetic Ascension, we actually go into what I like to call the word from the Sebayit. The word from the Sebayit. What is the Sebayit?
Sacred wisdom.
Sacred wisdom.
Instructions.
Instructions. Anyone else want to add on to that? Not that those answers weren't magnificent, they were.
Guidance.
Guidance. The Sebayit were some of the world's first literature. And so all of these earliest books coming forth from the heart of Africa were really about how to live a life in divine balance. And so imagine that the first things that your African ancestors sought to write, sought to promulgate, sought to give to us as guidance were about how to be ma'atical. They could have written books about all kinds of stuff, right? But the first ones they sought to write were about living in ma'at, which is an amazing, amazing thing. And so we're so pleased that we have them. It is important for us to read them. Because with all of the documentaries that you will see, with all of the descriptions of the Neteru, descriptions of the Kemetic people, you will never hear them mention the texts that were written. Maybe you'll hear the Book of the Dead, which is really not what we called it. We call that text the Reyu Pert and Haruan Ger, the book of coming forth today from night. That's what we call that divine text. With all of the things that were written, perhaps some of the most important things that were written were in the genre of the Sebayit. And it is incumbent upon you Africans to read it. It is incumbent upon you to study it. And so today I want to really drill down a little bit further into one of perhaps the most important iterations of Sebayit literature. You have heard me mention Ptahhotep many times if you are not new to Kemetic Ascension. Today I want to share with you some of its teaching so that you will use it in your life. It is of critical importance that we do so. But before I do that, what do I want to say? Now, I talked about this with the members of the Wen Wet, but I didn't talk about it here in Kemetic Ascension. There's so much that your ancestors have written. There's so much that they've brought to us in wisdom. There's so much that they've brought to us in divine balance. But if you are not reading from them, if you are not seeking to hear the words of your ancestors, maybe images like this are the ones you think of when you think of ancient Kemet. Who's familiar with the Amazon Super Bowl commercial? Anybody? No?
I don't remember that commercial. I don't remember any.
Oh!
I'm not coming to the light right now, right away.
I thought we have our brother here, Sakem. I mean, I thought you sent it to me too. You did. You just don't know what I'm talking about. He did. He and I talk. We chat back and forth. We text back and forth. You know, our brother Sakem, who was here, comes from Philly. I told you we had some stuff going on in Philly, right? I'm pretty sure he sent it to me. I'm pretty sure he did. He just don't remember. So, you know, I watched the Super Bowl, and when I saw it, I was like, what?
What happened?
Not the part, oh, now I know.
Yes, you do.
And I've been wondering, I said we need to go out and challenge them on that.
Yes, we do.
Because why are you using that? Oh, I wanted to jump to the TV and punch them upside the head.
I think I know the commercial you're talking about.
Right.
It's like, I'm thinking about it, you're right, life before that.
And how dare they?
Yes.
How dare they?
So, let's take a look at it and understand that if you are not reading from your ancestors, if you are not allowing their words to be heard, this is what people see. Do you know that the Super Bowl is one of the most watched television events every year? We're excited that we have 15 to 20,000 people on a YouTube page. And maybe our views on Facebook, welcome to the YouTube and Facebook families once again, reach sometimes tens of thousands of people. How many people watch the Super Bowl?
About 320 million.
320 million across the world, not just in the United States. We're talking about literally hundreds of millions of people watch the Super Bowl. And let's go further. A lot of people who are not even into the game look to see the commercials.
Yeah, that's why.
And halftime.
And a halftime show.
It was 5 million for a 30-second spot.
Listen to this. Now you know that Kanum Kensu, who was in the visual arts, who has a television show, you know that he was paying attention to this. He said, how much, Kanum?
5 million just for a 30-second spot.
$5 million for a 30-second spot.
It gets crazy when you want a whole minute. It just gets crazy.
A minute is ridiculous.
It gets so much more.
So just understand how influential this medium is. And this is how you were viewed in your ancient self, family. Take a look. Take a look.
Is it the commercial where it was, did you guys say something about toilet paper?
You'll see it. Yes. See, you sent it to me too. That's right. By the Monday, he said, look at this. That's an email after text. I had seen it, but I should have known that Saket was gonna be upset about it too. So take a look. Take a look. Come on, you're supposed to play. Remember I said that we trying to do a lot with the little technology we have? Play. Here we go. Maybe this is not us going. I'm gonna play this from the folder.
That's my account.
Our laptops are crying. They are literally screaming and crying.
It's okay.
Say again?
Just go and play.
Yeah, I'm gonna play it here. You're saying don't tell them that our technology is busted?
That's
And he was like, you don't have to tell them it's busted every single
but-
time.
And this is what I'm gonna say in Tempe. Words have power to us, so don't say it's busted,
That's true.
right?
Yes. Well, I don't understand what Anika is pantomiming to me back there. I have no idea what she's
I have the
saying.
screen pointing to the TV and you have nothing on it, so I'm saying put it.
Oh no, I'm about to start it right
Okay.
here. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Because once I click it, it's gonna play. So here we go.
Lexios. Add toilet paper to the shopping list. Oh, and camel milk.
And moisturize.
Thanks, guys. I'll take it from here.
So I want you to think about what you just saw. It must have been about 15 seconds, maybe less, not very long. But a lot happened in that period.
Oh, it was.
Life before Alexa. Now, first of all, the reason why I talked to the Wenwet about this first is because those people were supposed to be you. Those are the priests that are doing the work.
Yeah,
This is how you're being rendered.
look at that.
And so first there's so much to say. Really quickly, understand that first we're seeing those people that we would consider Arabic as the ancient people, again. Then you might notice that they are wrapping someone who was making their transition to the afterlife. And what are they wrapping them with?
Toilet.
Toilet paper. So I guess they're saying your ancestors are feces.
Right, they're garbage.
That's what they're saying. And let's go further.
Wow.
What they sought to write and inscribe in stone is nothing more than a grocery list.
Wow.
No,
Make
a
it
roll
fun.
of tissue.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about what? I got the toilet tissue. I'm saying, did you notice he was also writing it in the temple? All they do is write down a simple grocery list. There's so much wrong here. So instead of great wisdom, and instead of texts that will help you live a balanced life, even in 2020, all it was their grocery list.
Wow.
A grocery list that describes how they rendered your ancestors as feces. There's so much wrong here. And even the name, the guy that is writing on it, his name is Alexios. By the way, you can hear that that's a Greek name.
Yes.
There's so much wrong with this. So I need to say to you, family, that if you are not reading the words of your ancestors, if you are not promulgating the words of your ancestors, if you are not glorifying their words as they tried to help us live in divine balance, this is the image that will be remembered of what you did when you were at the forefront of human civilization. This is really insulting.
Can you point out some of the things, other things that we missed? I saw.
Are there some other things that you wanted to mention, Ames? Go ahead.
Well, I know at the end they had Ampul on the desk.
Yes, Anpu was sitting
Well,
there.
I think it was something when they were walking in.
They said they had large Sahufied images of large statues with someone walking in with a mask, an Anpu mask.
Yes, yeah.
Sure, those are some things. And those things aren't the things that I think are most derogatory. It's the rest of it that is. It's the rest of it that we should take great
the
offense
hand.
to.
And how he was wrapping the hand, that was what got me. The way he had it, I don't know, it was like, where, they wrapped it, or it wouldn't have been up, or it wouldn't have been up. It would have been this.
Well, they were wrapping an arm. But I just want you to understand that there's a lot wrong here. There's a lot wrong here. And a lot that we should, it's not just funny.
That was very intentional.
It's not just funny.
Every time I wanted to
Wasn't
mention
funny.
Yeah, they could have said, I'm saying a lot of people just thought it was humorous.
They did.
It's not, this is not just, oh, don't worry about it, just laugh. Because what if I decided to make a commercial for Amazon where the person sitting below was absolutely binding Jesus and looking at his immaculate stigmata, those holes that were left by the nails that he supposedly received when placed on the cross. And I said, don't forget to get Band-Aids. And how about some new rose bushes? Because we've already used this up for the crown of thorns. What if I said those kinds of things? What if Jesus looked down and said, oh, and I need some batteries?
What about Moses? Let's go to him.
First of all, that would not make it to television.
No.
It may have run one
No,
time.
no, it probably would have made it through.
It was-
I don't think it would have went if it had something to do with the Torah. They have a way of, to me, they still are able to slip in on Christianity.
You better understand the people that are most powerful are the ones that are behind the scenes. We hear people who are Jewish complain and argue about their image, but you don't see those really derogatory images of Jesus at all, because those are already filtered out.
For sure, they had.
I'm telling you that if I did that, not only would it not be on the Super Bowl, not only would Jabari come up missing,
Southern Christian.
I'm saying to you that, first of all, let me be clear. I'm not saying that anyone should make a commercial like the one I'm describing.
Right.
It's disrespectful. But what I am saying is that the disrespect of African traditions goes on all day long, every day.
With no remorse.
With no remorse, no response. Because they assume you've forgotten who you are.
So, I have a question.
Yes.
With something like this, how would we, as Kemites, respond in the internet? Because you have down there fake Alexis commercial. How would we respond? Because the only way you really can respond is by liking or disliking or writing a review.
The CEO.
I think that what we have to do in instances like this is we have to issue press releases. We have to perhaps consider boycotts. We have to also consider that we need to be heard. Because one of the reasons why they believe they can do this is because they believe those people who have memory of this, those people who are practitioners, are gone.
Are dead, gone, forgotten. That's right.
And so as we become larger, as we become more influential, we'll be able to make a response that is heard. You might have remembered that just a few weeks ago, I was challenging Popeyes on their voodoo chicken promotion. I have no idea if Popeyes even heard me. Not a clue. Not a clue.
But they did stop it. It was
Well,
taken off. Maybe
it was
time.
a temporary promotion. It wasn't planned to be part of their menu forever.
It's for the
Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras.
It was around that period, yes.
Yeah, that's why.
So I want to see if they bring it back next year. So I'm saying to you that this is normal. The disrespect of African traditions is normal. It's normal. But today what I want to do is I want to read from things that we wrote. I want to remember what our ancestors did when they were able to speak for themselves. I want us to think about what is the relevance of the things they actually left behind. So I'm not going to spend the entire conversation on Amazon. I want to be corrective in the sense that you know what we actually spoke about. You know what we actually thought was of importance. And that's why today is a good day for us to talk about the maxims of Ptah. So let's go. Now it wants to play. First of all, I've said to you that the Maxims of Ptah it is actually, I should say, the world's oldest book. The world's oldest complete book. So that there are other texts that are as old or a little older, but they are in fragmentary form. The Maxims of Ptah are the world's oldest complete book, written by a group of people who several centuries later would be considered illiterate by a large swath of human society. By those people whose contributions to civilization are questioned or are forgotten. In fact, let's just think about our recent ancestors as enslaved people. You're familiar that it was at some point illegal for us to read, right? Yes. Take a look at this 1940s law from Georgia. It says, if any slave, Negro, or free person of color, or any white person shall teach any other slave, Negro, or free person of color to read or write either written or printed characters, the said free person of color or slave shall be punished by fine and whipping, or fine or whipping, at the discretion of the court. So there was a point where it was clearly illegal for us to read. And in fact, the person that is actually sanctioned here, interestingly, is the teacher. One of the reasons why it might, the person who is teaching might be the person that's sanctioned is also because the people that wrote this law saw the enslaved as their property. And they might not have in this instance wanted to damage their property. They wanted to absolutely deal with those people who had the interest in allowing our ancestors the ability to read or write the written word. Very, very interesting. And in fact, you should understand that literacy in writing was seen as a subversive act. The Negro Act of 1740, enacted by South Carolina, yes, the same place that just had their caucuses yesterday, where black people were seen as the motivator, the lion's share of the votes in order to create the next president, perhaps.
Right.
That's South Carolina. In response to the Stonewall Rebellion, you should know that the enslaved African who led the rebellion, who was called Jemmy or also Cato, he led 20 other Congolese soldiers and 60 others in rebellion around the Stonewall River, and they killed 22 to 25 whites. And so they understand that they need to create laws to effect literacy, because those people who were most apt to rebel were those people who were learned. I ask ourselves, what do learned people of African descent, what are they known for today? I really wonder. What are they known for today? What do you expect the most learned amongst us to do today? It might be just look for things for their own personal benefit. Well, that's not what was happening in the mid-1700s. Let's go further. Many other states had laws against writing, and you should know that one of the only things that you might have been able to learn to read, one of the only things that it might have been okay for you to read was the Bible. Because they saw the Bible as an important tool for the pacification of our people. And so while it was illegal to read, if you got caught reading the Bible, if someone got caught reading the Bible to you, sometimes that would be okay. What are your thoughts about that? What do you think?
Well,
I'm asking.
well, remember that a lot of times, let's be quote unquote, they were very uneducated white folks that had some. That you understand?
Uh-huh.
And so their spiritual guidance came from their minister, which was, in turn, they were even being segregated and controlled, because that's how it came down.
By class.
By class. And so, and when they got broken up into these different denominations of Christianity and all that, they, in turn, and some of them just felt, well, if I go to school and I learn that your soul is not there, you come from primitive means and things, this is a way of educating and bringing you, yes, I got you in slavery, but I'm teaching you some righteous, civilized things. And what is more, nothing's more civilized than the Bible. In their eyes, because that is what has been taught to them, is the most righteous thing.
Let me go further. Absolutely, let me go further. This quote comes from The Religious Instruction of the Negroes and Other Works by Dr. Reverend Charles Colcock Jones. A text that you might want to read. Very interesting. This is the quote that this is the piece that he writes about why enslaved Africans should read the Bible. It says, "It is a matter of astonishment that there should be any objection at all. For the duty of giving a religious instruction to our Negroes and the benefits flowing from it should be obvious to all. The benefits we conceive to be incalculably great, and one of them is there will be greater subordination among the Negroes."
What color was he?
This is a European man.
Oh, well,
This is a European man who owned enslaved Africans.
wow.
This is what he was writing to express to other powerful enslavers, that they should be comfortable with all of this, saying that reading amongst the enslaved was dangerous. This book was attempting to explain why allowing us to be taught from and to perhaps even read the Bible was a good thing, because it could lead to our greater subordination. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. And I want you to understand that after Africans destroyed their chains, after Africans destroyed the institution of enslavement, right after the Civil War, African Americans viewed our literacy as one of the most important things that we could do. That those people who were formerly enslaved fought to become literate. And if you even just look at the rates of illiteracy amongst enslaved Africans, within 20 years, that rate absolutely is what the amount of Africans that could read explodes, because we understood what they had done by keeping us illiterate. Yes.
And I beg for this question to be thrown out there. Was the literacy that they became increased was the language of the captors, who said that in their own culture and language that they did not read, write, or anything like that. You understand? They snatched people from all segments of our culture. We had languages, we had writing.
Yes.
We did not have the English literature writing.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. But I also want you to understand, when we're talking about the end of the Civil War, most enslaved Africans actually had been born on this soil.
Okay.
Because the international trade of enslaved Africans had actually, for the most part, died much earlier. And so many of us who were enslaved were the offspring of other people who had been enslaved. So yes, I would agree with you that there were likely some enslaved Africans who read other languages. That's probably the case. But I would honestly, well, I know it's the case, but I'm saying that number is probably still very small.
And even their language, even in their language, they knew.
Sure. Just think that some of the drive against the international enslavement trade comes to a head at around 1808. We can talk more about this later. And the Civil War ends in the United States in 1865. So we're talking about almost 60 years later. Does that make sense? So most enslaved Africans would not have been able to read at that time. Any language. Any language. And you should understand that one of the first things that free Africans do in their petitions to and their work with Abraham Lincoln, not someone who I view as our ally, but at least someone who strategically was doing things that we needed to be done, they plead to him to create what is called the Freedmen's Bureau. Have you ever heard of the Freedmen's Bureau? Mm-hmm. This was a government institution that was created to take care of health care, housing, and employment, and even education of the formerly enslaved.
What is it called?
The Freedmen's Bureau. One of the things that the Freedmen's Bureau does is it assists in the creation of the historically black college and universities. The HBCUs, those institutions that still graduate more African Americans than any other institutions in the country. The number of students that go there is relatively small when you compare it to institutions that are not HBCUs, but their number of graduates is outsized compared to their size. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Is outsized compared to their size.
But wasn't there a lot of to help formulate these HBCs? A lot of them were quote unquote Protestant, different Protestant white.
Sure.
That came
I don't want to make it sound like HBCUs were or are perfect. Mm-hmm. But I do want to say that they were tools for education and literacy. Yeah. Some of what they were teaching, especially in the beginning, we should be concerned about. But you have to understand that they're still teaching to people who had just dropped their chains.
Or their children.
Or the children thereof. One of the lasting things, because you should know the Freedmen's Bureau only exists for 6 years. This is a whole other conversation that I would love to have. This is not the discussion for it. But you should understand that the battle between the Democrats and the Republicans is what led to the end of the Reconstruction era. The era where enslaved Africans were working to improve themselves with the assistance of the federal government. There was a very close election, and through what is called the Hayes-Tilden Compromise, I'm not going to go into it extensively, one group gets the White House in order to agree to remove the troops from the South. The troops that were forcing these former enslavers and other Tomhu not to actually be violent against the formerly enslaved, not to try to destroy our businesses, not to try to destroy our schools, and to allow us to develop.
In other words, to obey the law.
That's
that
right.
had been put in place. That
That's
they were not
right.
Obeying.
So the federal troops were there to enforce the law.
Well, it was more, if we really look at it, and like you said, we can't get too in depth right now, but the reason why they really was trying to enforce certain things down there because the economics for the country as the United States as the unified states at that time, all those states. One of the reasons why we went into this in Abraham is because those states were like when that bill came up again and they had to pay that bill, they didn't want to pay it. They said we wasn't part of that contract, and so they tried to get out of that. But that's another story.
What bill are you referring to?
Okay, we know that that the United States when it
Come on, tell a story quickly now.
Okay, when we came out after the Revolutionary War, out of the Revolutionary War, after 10 years of battle, the United States itself was bankrupt. They didn't have nothing. And so it was a bill, and that's when they formed the what you call the corporation, which gives the country 70 years to pay it back. If you do the mathematics, 1860, when the bill was due, the southern states was not part of the original 13 colonies, and they said, and that's why they wanted to get out of there, because they were making their own money.
That's one of the reasons, yes.
One of the main reasons. One of the top main reasons.
Well, I don't know if it's the top reason. It was more, there were several reasons.
Yeah.
One of the other reasons why it must have been, why we know that they were very uncomfortable is because some of these enslaved Africans, are we okay?
The door is locked. Somebody locked and closed it.
Yeah? There is a key. You see what happens when you have sessions and you like family? Somebody locked the bathroom by mistake. Let me just tell you what it is. So this is the deal. Can you get the key? I'm sorry, it's on the top floor.
Yeah.
In my study, on that little ceramic baseball that's on my desk, you're gonna see the little key. It looks like a loop with a little stick coming from it. Hopefully you'll be able to find it. If not, text me, okay? Okay.
I pull out my card for you, if not.
Say again, you do what?
I pull my card out.
There you
If
go.
not.
I don't know if you'll be able to do what. Well, yeah, we'll try. We'll do everything we can. Okay. So, understand that there were a lot of impetuses for these Southern whites, these Southern Tomhu, not to want those soldiers there, because without the soldiers, they could absolutely put Africans back in their place with violence. With institutions like the White Citizens Council and the Ku Klux Klan. But they could not do that as long as the troops were there enforcing the law. So after the troops are removed, then we see things like the Black Codes. We see things like Jim Crow. We see things that also seek to disenfranchise people of African descent, to prevent them from voting, like the poll tax and the grandfather tax. All things that occurred so that these Africans would not be able to use their vote, their dollars, to uplift themselves. Do you know there only have been 10 African Americans who have been in the Senate of the United States? Did you know that? 10. 10. But you have to understand that there was a senator right after enslavement.
Louisiana. Right.
Homework. What is the name of the African American man who went to the United States Senate? Do your homework. Okay?
So you're saying there was only one?
There was one that came right. I'm just saying.
The first one.
Yes.
Right after.
But I want you to think of it this way.
Right.
This is 2020, and that was in 1866, I believe, is when he went to the Senate. When you look at that amount, that period of time, we are talking about, what, 140 years? Is it 140? 65? More than 140 years. It's about 150 years. There have only been 10 African Americans in the Senate. 10.
It must have been
10.
From 1950.
And can you imagine, we elected one in 1866. And that's because black folk most of whom were formerly enslaved, sought to work on our own interest. And so one of the things that we did was we elected a governor, we elected Congress people, we elected mayors, we elected people that were going to look out for our own interest. And we also forced the Freedmen's Bureau to do something that everyone benefits from. The Freedmen's Bureau creates the first national public school system. Did you know that now we have public schools everywhere? And I know that we have a lot of problems with public schools. They in almost any part of the country, they're teaching things that are not helpful for us. I get that. I'm not trying to make it sound like public schools are, all of them are amazing, and all of them are helpful to our people. I'm not saying that. But I am saying when you're in a situation where there is no school, you'd rather public school to no school. Now somebody in that chat room is going to say, what about homeschooling? If no one in your family can read, how do you homeschool? Someone's going to say it. So I want to be clear that public school at the time was an absolutely invaluable lifeline for everyone. Because prior to that, if you weren't wealthy, you just didn't go to school. Regardless of your ethnicity, your racial background, or the state you lived in. There were very few systems that sought to educate everyone. In the United States today, we understand that every child has access to school, regardless of their economics, regardless of their race, regardless of their ethnicity. In fact, even if you are an illegally documented resident, you are obligated to send your child to school. Yes. Does that make sense? Everyone in the United States has benefited from schooling, the schooling of children. Everyone. This is not the time we're talking about what they teach. We can talk more about that later. I'm just saying, imagine if they didn't exist at all, what would happen? And the public school system was created by the Freedmen's Bureau to assist formerly enslaved Africans. So if there was no movement towards the liberation of Africans, no one would have school. Does that make sense? Can you see how important this drive is? I want you to also understand that literacy is still a very important thing in our community. And literacy is also still something that we don't get adequately. While African Americans have made great strides from enslavement and towards our current era, it's still not at the point that it needs to be. So if you look at, this is a little bit of an older statistical analysis, but it's a really good one still. So if you look at the number of if you look at the rates of literacy for adults from 1992 to 2003, you're going to see that the rates of people, Anika had to go upstairs, let me switch the slide here. Bear with me for one moment. There we go. You're going to see that the number of people who had basic or less literacy for the Tamhu, for the European, was in 1992 9%, in 2003 7%. And then you'll look beyond and you'll see beyond basic, intermediate, proficient. Do you see what this line is showing us? But for African Americans in 1992, the percentage of people that had basic or less was 30% in 1992. And then, below basic was 24%. So even now, the number of people in our community that have less literacy is still more than 3 times that of the community of people of European descent. Do you understand what I'm saying? Still not working? You couldn't? I thought you were texting. No? Okay. And we see interesting numbers also of those people who are Latino, or as they say here on this slide, Hispanic. Now I want you to understand that their literacy occurs in a slightly different milieu. Why? Because they are primarily a group of people who are speaking in some instances another language. So you can't still look at literacy amongst African Americans and Latinos as the same thing. Does that make sense? That is how difficult this is. And then, of course, when we look at Asians, we see that their rates have of people who are able to read at least a basic level have dropped precipitously from 1992 to 2003. So if you just look at these rates, you're going to see the challenges that we have with literacy in this country. Yes, Ahmed.
You remember this? Telling my age here, but I think they had this show back in the late 70s, early 80s, about Latinos that could speak, they spoke fluent Spanish. They, you know, their parents did, but they couldn't read or write their language. It was called, can speak Spanish, but you can't read. It's a great number of them that speak their language, but they can't even, they can't read, they can't even read and write their own language.
Yeah. So literacy, even amongst those people who are trying to become literate in another language, is a challenge as well. So there are many people who are coming to the United States that have challenges with literacy in Spanish as well.
So what the Europeans, what we call the English-speaking Europeans, the Spanish-speaking Europeans that took Africans to those countries with Africans and and French who took them, you know, it's some French that speak French and can't read or write either. The same thing occurred in where they're at. So this it went across the whole diaspora of when we talk about this, you know, the Tamahu in each one of those cultures, the Portuguese, the French, the Italians, all of them, they all did it.
Right.
They all did it.
Right. Right. Right.
Too easy. What you gonna pick his nose?
You know it's
You should know in the background, we were struggling to get the bathroom open. Let me just be clear about what was happening in the background. So this is a real issue, right? This is a real issue because particularly in this current day, if you have difficulties with literacy, how can you actually do the things that you need to do in a literate society? How do you drive? How do you fill out applications for work? How do you use a computer? How do you, all of these things, if you have less than basic literacy, you are absolutely forced to be an underclass. And I want you to understand that this is a problem for us. And if you look at the ancient picture, this is even more disturbing because we are the group of people that give literacy to the world. Do you understand that when we jump backwards and forwards, this story is one that we should really be concerned about. And so let's talk a bit about the world's first literature, that literature that we call Sibayit literature. You should know that it's a comprehensive body of ethical and moral literature. It's about how to live ma'at. Very important. And that the earliest texts come from the Old Kingdom. So we're saying that they are very old. The Maxims of Ptah are nearly 5,000 years old. I had a conversation once with a woman who said that the Torah and the Bible were the earliest literature. And I said, oh, no. And she said, what do you mean they're older books? I said, I could pick up at least 5 written languages that are older. And I can give you at least 12 texts off the top of my head, that are much older. And she said, really? I said, take a look at this. I actually had a copy of the Maxim of Ptah with me because we were filming an episode on our television show about it. And I said, this book is literally at least 3,000 years, let's say 2,000 years to be fair, older than the Torah, much older than the Bible. 2,000 years. And she said, well, 2,000 years is not that long ago. I said, that's interesting, because every day when I talk to people who are Christian, they tell me that when Jesus supposedly walked the earth 2,000 years ago, that was a real long time ago. She said, I never thought of it that way. I said, I know you haven't. So you need to understand that we are talking about something that happened in the most remote period. And in addition to this, understand that in this, many people argue you see the world's earliest philosophy. And there are definitely people who make this argument. Of course, when we make the argument, now all of a sudden it becomes a controversial thing to say. These texts, by the way, also remain in usage in the Arab conquest of the 7th century of the Common Era. And so we're talking about texts that were used for 3,000 plus years, that were in usage for 3,000 plus years. Some of the most important texts are, say this with me, the instructions of Kagemni, the maxims of Ptahhotep, and also the maxims of Kensu-Hetep. And in fact, if they weren't of importance, when you look at the instructions of Amenemop, which is, by the way, you must read the instructions of Amenemop. They are magnificent. You are going to see that a section of the instructions of Amenemop, I say this and I get a lot of heat for it, although it is a scholarly fact, a section of the instructions of Amenemop is now in the Christian Bible. It is in the book of Proverbs. So you must understand how important it is. When I say in there, I'm saying verbatim. And so for those of you who have been arguing for years that Christianity, as I have argued, Christianity has its origin in Kemet, when people challenge you about it, almost all you have to do is say, instructions of Amenemop, and drop the mic. That's almost all you have to say. That's almost all you have to say. Sometimes, just to play with this, I say, do you believe the Bible is the Word of God? Yes. Do you believe that these words came for the salvation of the people? Absolutely. Do you believe that they were given for people to rescue them from sin? Yes. Well, then you're saying that the Kemetic texts were sent for that way. Huh? Well, did you know that this document, this Kemetic text, is in the Bible? So you were saying the Kemetic texts are the Word of God. Is that what you're saying? And they almost look like the robot in the old Star Trek thing. Does not compute, does not compute, does not compute. They struggle with that.
Of course, they didn't know it existed.
Now, this is the difficult thing. When I say that to Christians who are Tomhu, guess what they say? That's interesting. I need to read that. When I say that to people of African descent, what do they say? You are a sinner. This is hell. This is. I would think that story would empower them.
That's sad. You're right.
That's what it should do. Are you telling me that the texts in the Bible have earlier sources? That Africans wrote it? So this is a problem. Now, I am once again not saying that all of the Bible was written by Africans. What I am saying is that these ideas, these characters, these incidents, and even some of the text were taken by other people and re-described, reissued according to their own worldview. But what we must do is now go back to the more ancient sources. That is what I am saying. So, let's talk about the maxims of Ptahhotep. Yeah, it's getting late. Let me move. Okay. Like I said, the maxims of Ptahhotep are the oldest book in existence. They were reportedly written by Ptahhotep between 2412 and 2375 BCE. That means that they are literally approaching 5,000 years old. And Ptahhotep was supposed to be a man that might have become the king, but instead he becomes the Jati to the king Jedkara Isesi. Say that with me. Jedkara Isesi. This is a king of the 5th dynasty. And he writes them for a young man that he says is his spiritual son. And Ptahhotep at the time of its writing says that he's 110 years old. By the way, he says that he is 110 and that he is in a lot of pain. He says, seeing is almost impossible. Hearing eludes me. It is difficult to breathe. It is hard to walk. He's talking about being of advanced age and struggling. But I believe he knew that he needed to write this for this young man before he made his transition. Very important. Very, very important. Now, when I say that it's the oldest complete book, let me say two things. First of all, a Frenchman by the name of Priest d'Avens bought the book from a store in the city that we call Luxor today, or Wasset, in 1843. That's when the book was actually purchased by this Frenchman. By the way, he could not read it. He just purchased it. Does that make sense? You understand, right, what I'm saying? And you should understand that the copy that he has actually has the last 2 pages of the Maxims of Khamenei. The Maxims of Khamenei are actually believed to be older than the Maxims of Ptahhotep, but they are not complete. So when I say that the Maxims of Ptahhotep are the oldest book, the one that's older, that is not complete, is also written by Africans. Do you hear me?
I mentioned that when I was teaching that, but I couldn't remember the name.
Yes. You have a lot of information in there. We're gonna help you get it all out. That's right. He has been studying for a long time. He has a lot of information in there. It has the Maxim Ptahhotep have 37 points on how to succeed and live a ma'atical life. And I want you to just clearly look at Ptahhotep. Look at his face. Look at his nose. Look at his lips. Look at his hair. This is an African. You have heard me say this before, family. You will find a copy of the Maxims of Ptahhotep in any major bookstore in the country. In fact, you may even see at least 4 different versions of it in every major bookstore in the country. But what none of them have is an image of the man's face.
Kind of looks like a light-skinned version of Kanum Kensu.
Uh-oh. Look like a little lighter Kanum Kensu back there. That's you, brother. That's you. That's your great granddaddy. That's who that is.
Now you look at it.
Looks like Kanum Kensu. So I want you to understand that as we look at this and we don't see his image, sometimes you have to think, well, I think that most people probably think that it's so old that we don't have an image. But I want you to understand that Anika and I have been honored to take groups to Kemet. Our last trip was our 17th trip. Mm-hmm. We've been honored to take groups to Kemet over the last 20 years. And we go to a museum that has this full-size statue of Ptahhotep. Full-size, life-size statue in full color. Why is that image not in any of the books? There was a long time that if you searched Ptahhotep on the internet, you would see Jabari and Anika. And when you saw his picture, you saw Jabari standing next to it like this. I was a little surprised. It's not a flattering picture. Then the next year I said to Anika, we can't leave that on the internet. We got to get a better picture. Well, when the picture that was taken was from a cool angle, I'm standing next to him, I'm like this, but my clothes are completely wrinkled and I am just sweated out. Big sweaty armpits. And folks, you need to understand that so few people see this image, this statue, that when we go to the museum in a part of the world where it regularly reaches 110 degrees, they turn on the AC when we get to the museum. You might say, well, wait, it's 110 degrees. They have AC. Why don't they turn it on? Because no one goes there. In fact, about 2 years ago when I was walking into that museum, by the way, the museum is the Imhotep Museum. When I walked in, something curious happened. The guy that takes our tickets at the door, I'm trying to gather the group and speak to them, he keeps hitting me. After all, I was like, do you not see me speaking to the people? I got a little annoyed. And then I felt bad because you know what he was trying to show me? He was trying to show me his phone. He had pictures of the two of us standing together for 7 years. Oh. So then I felt bad. But the reason why he's doing this, he's saying, by the way, he doesn't speak very much English, and my Arabic is not very good either. He was saying, doctor, 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 doctor. He was trying to say, I know that you're the one that brings the groups here. Amazing. That's why the AC is not on, and that's why I was sweated out in the picture, because it's really hot in that building. Nika, am I saying, this is true?
Yes.
This is absolutely the truth. By the way, if it wasn't true, why would I tell you about my sweated armpits, right? You know what I mean? You know that this is a true story. So, let's read some of this. Oh, I want to make one comment. Many scholars say that this is likely the world's first philosophical text. Right? Many scholars say it. But when the African Guyanese author George G.M. James makes the claim, now it's controversial. He has long been an ancestor, but he has been attacked by people all around. Even our own people, who now on the internet are calling him pseudo. So when Europeans make the argument, it's like, oh, that's interesting. When an African dares to say that the origin of philosophy is African, now all of a sudden he is attacked. And we know that if you read this book, he is talking about how to live a divine life. If this is not philosophy, I don't know what is. Let's read a few, just a few of the maxims. First off, what is this woman doing?
She's making bread.
Making bread, right? Now listen, who in here has not eaten bread? Everybody's eating bread. But did you realize that in the ancient world it was this back-breaking a task? Does that look easy?
Oh my goodness.
She's struggling.
Wait till this is over.
That's right. Grinding the grain on a stone. This is back-breaking work that usually women who were not wealthy did in ancient Kemet. And so listen to the first maxim of the Maxim of Ptahhotep. He says, do not be conceited by your own knowledge. Take advice from the ignorant as well as the wise, since there is no single person who embodies perfection, nor a craftsman who has reached the limits of excellence. The perfect word is as rare as emerald, yet it can be found amongst the maidservants at the millstone. I want you to understand that he is saying that among these women you will find great wisdom. And so that you, with all of your learnedness, remember that these women also are wise. That's the first maxim in the world's oldest book. You can tell this is African because of the way that they revere women. Because the other peoples of this time, they don't even, listen, some of the great Greek and Roman kings, you don't even know the names of their wives. Yeah, the queen, what? In the very biblical text, when Noah takes his sons and their wives on the ark, these women, if you believe this story to be accurate historically, are going to be the people who people the rest of the world. All other humans were annihilated. Yet in the text it says, Noah and his sons, and their wives. They don't even mention their names. That's what other peoples did with regard to women. Yet the first maxim of the world's oldest book, written by an African, says, don't be arrogant, because those women, who are the poorer working women, also have wisdom. So powerful. So powerful. And something we need to remember in 2020. How about maxim number 9? Listen to this one. If you plow, and if there is growth in your field, and the Creator lets it prosper in your hand, don't boast to your neighbor. One has great respect for the silent person. A person of character is a person of wealth. If that person robs, he or she is like a crocodile in the middle of the waters. If the Creator gives you children, do not impose on one who has no children. Neither should you decry or brag about having your own children, for there is many a father who has grief, and many a mother with children who is less than content than another. It is the lonely whom the Creator nurtures, while the family man prays for a follower. He is talking about the challenge of receiving blessings and remembering that you should be humbled by them. That instead of bragging and talking about your Maybachs and your BMWs and all that other stuff, you should respect even those who have little. And that when you are honored to have children, you should remember those people who don't have children. And then he also seems to say, listen, you're going to brag about all your kids, but there are many a mother and father who are in grief. So watch yourself, because you could be in grief, is what he's really saying here. He's saying also, it is difficult to raise them kids. That is what he is saying. And I love this part. It is the lonely whom the Creator nurtures, while the family man prays for a follower.
That's heavy.
He's also saying, and this is something that we struggle with, he's also saying that you may have children, but it's very difficult to raise them in the right way. The family man prays for a follower. They're not listening to me.
That's right. So who are they going to listen to?
This is powerful. This is powerful. And so I think that we should continue to read from the Maxim Untitled Chapter. Let's listen to Maxim 11. He says, follow your heart as long as you live. Do no more than is required. Do not shorten the time of follow the heart, since that offends the Ka. Don't waste time on daily cares over and beyond providing for your household. When wealth finally comes, then follow your heart. Wealth does no good if you are glum. There's so much here too. By the way, this is interesting. He says, listen, I know you're at work and you're killing yourself, but remember to do that which you enjoy, that you love.
You hear that, supervisor?
And then when the wealth comes, now you can really follow your heart. I mean, imagine that this maxim was written 4,000, nearly 5,000 years ago, but it is as relevant in 2020 as anything else that you will read. He's even saying, find a work-home balance. That's what he's talking about.
Nothing new under the sun.
Have a balance. This is really, really important. And he says, wealth does no good if you are glum.
That's true.
And you know that this is even more important in the day that we are in today. Because we find ourselves working longer hours than our parents. Something interesting has happened in the United States since 1979. Something interesting has happened. So if you look at this graph, you're going to see that this red line shows the average income for the top 1%. This is what Bernie Sanders is talking about, by the way. Can you see how the income in 1979 was not extremely much, it wasn't that much different than the overall wages of everyone else? And then it exploded. Can you see that? That's the red line. This sort of, it's like a pea-colored line. It's not quite yellow, right? That's productivity. So productivity for workers has continued to increase. In fact, it's increased by 80% since 1979. That's the amount of work they got you doing. You are doing 80% more. Yet look at wages, flat. Flat. They've only increased about 15% or so. Not matching inflation. So it is normal for American workers, for people in the United States, to be struggling at work and to be glum. He's saying make sure that you have your work life in balance with your other pursuits, so that you are then able to enjoy those things that speak to you. Now, I don't know anybody that smiles perhaps more than our recently retired priestess. Look at that smile. I'm calling her out.
I was looking for
I'm
you.
calling her out.
But this is my new life.
Yes.
I have not retired. I have actually blossomed.
Yes, she has. I'm talking about a
Wasn't
boot
my life.
noni bastet. You could see she's glowing, boy, because she did her work and now she gets to do the things that really make her heart sing. Now, let's be clear. She wouldn't be so good at those things if she wasn't doing it when she was still working. Right? This is almost her story. They could have just called this is the Noni Maxim. Because she was doing these things when she was still working diligently. So now that she is no longer working, she can truly do what, as he calls, the follow the heart.
I'm still working. I'm just working for the shrine of my aunt.
Woo! We know that's true. And I was just about to say, if any group has benefited from it, it's us. Because she is as active as you can be. In fact, for those of you who are new initiates, you probably know that more often than not, it was her name, her voice, and the voice of another priestess, another important person, our Abut Seshat on the other end of the line, talking to you about the process. So we have really benefited from them and their work in the shrine. And so we are so happy that Seshat has work-life balance.
Seshat.
And Sadet Noni is now following her heart. Aren't we pleased? So please remember that this is something that Ptahhotep says. I think we have two more and then we're going to close. Here's Maxim number 18. He says, and this one, I'm going to tell you, if men would listen to this, if women would listen to this, their lives would be so much more fruitful. Listen to what he says. If you want your friendship to endure in the house you enter, beware approaching the women there. 1,000 men are turned away from their good because of a short moment that is like a dream. And then that moment is followed by death that comes from having known that dream. If you are one who fills through the lust of women, then no affairs of yours can prosper. And this matches what he says in Maxim 32. He says, be circumspect in matters of sexual relations. Can you imagine he wrote this 5,000 years ago?
Because they were doing it back.
Would it not? Look at Bill Clinton standing here looking at Monica Lewinsky. How about when John Edwards, who might have been the president of the United States, by the way, he was extremely influential. Black folk loved him. I saw him speak. He was a powerful speaker. Guess where I saw him speak?
Where?
At the National Action Network Conference. And Al Sharpton was in the back doing this. Like, you better understand this dude can speak. And he was talking to us. A powerful politician, undone by his sexual picadillos. What did he do? He had a love child with somebody. And when the word almost came out, he used his campaign to pay the woman off. And then, to make matters worse, we found out that his wife was dying of cancer while he was doing it. So it destroyed his career. Some of you don't even remember the name John Edwards anymore. And he was like number 2 in polling. He might, if this wasn't for him messing around, he might have been president. If you are one who fills through the lust of women, then no affairs of yours can prosper. Someone should have slipped a copy of Maxim Ptahhotep to John Edwards and said, oh, look at number 18, and just walked away. I am telling you that there is great wisdom here. There is great wisdom here. And I love the imagery. He says that this moment is shortened like a dream, but after that it's followed by the death.
Oh, you gonna get it.
You thought you enjoyed it, and now look at what happens. Be cautious and circumspect in matters of sexual relations. And then finally, here's the last one we'll cover. If you are angered by this is Maxim 29. If you are angered by a misdeed, then lead toward a man on account of his rightness. Pass over the misdeed and don't remember it, since the Creator was silent to you on the first day of your misdeed. In other words, don't be so hard on people. You are not perfect. If you want to be so hard on people, then allow the Creator to judge you for that which you have done. You're hoping for mercy. You're hoping for understanding. Yet you have so little of it for your own friends who tend to be good people. Allow them to be imperfect. Do you know how many people need to hear this? How many people are holding grudges? How many people are bruised and allowing that bruising to harm their relationships, to affect other people? Yes, even in the community of the Kemetic. That we have so little tolerance for people that we have problems with each other, that we've forgotten that we must restore ma'at. This is of critical importance, Maxim 29. Remember, you are not perfect. Allow people to be imperfect and assist them. Forgive them, because you want forgiveness for that which you have done as well. So powerful. Well, I'm going to say to you that there is really no better text for you to read if you want to live a life according to Ma'at. Now, I know that there are some of you who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, some of you in the room who are struggling to read the Reyu Pert and Maru Gear, a wonderful text. The book that we call it the Pert and Maru, you should know. Practitioners just say, we shorten it, we call it the Pert and Maru. Struggling to read that book that should be called the Book of Coming Forth Today from Night. It is a book of ceremonies. So if you don't understand what they're talking about, it can be very difficult to read. I'm still saying you must read it, but if you're looking for something that's more narrative, that could speak to where you are in your life, you should be reading Sibayit literature. Particularly the Maxims of Ptahhotep. Because Ptahhotep at the age of 110 sought for us to learn how to live a life of divine balance. And there is no better aim, no better endeavor than to be spiritually and ethically balanced. We say in the Shrine of Ma'at and all other practitioners of the Kemetic tradition, Seruj Ma'at, you must restore balance. Please read these texts so that you can do your work and restore balance as well. The divine force in me greets the divine force in you. I know I kept you a little longer. I was also speaking a little longer to check and see if Anika was going well on our new stuff back there. She looks calm, so I guess that everything went relatively smoothly. Can we now move to our final word of power? Anika, do you want to lead us in this a bit of Hekal? So this is going to be our final affirmation.
I have to say that last Maxim was one of my favorites because recently I've had a lot of people who are in grief, who are causing grief for others by being upset when you don't get back to them in time, or they want to hold grudges. I've had individuals call me after 2 years who have been holding on to something that I didn't even know they were holding on to, or people I didn't even remember because I hadn't seen them in 2 years. And they came back to me and said, "I'm mad at you because of blah, blah, blah." And I said, okay. You know, and I let them chant. I let them let it out, and you know, sometimes you have to let people get things off your heart, and I understand that. So I allowed it to happen, but I also want to know from those individuals, well, what have you done to try to restore my eye?
Yes.
You know, you waited 2 years to tell me you had an issue. I don't even remember what the issue was because I wasn't holding on to it, and now you're bringing it to me to have to deal with. So I really appreciated that last one because I really think all of us need to learn forgiveness. And communication. You know, a lot of us don't know how to communicate or choose not to communicate because it's difficult. And we all have that issue. There are times when I avoid things because it's difficult, so I'm no better than anyone else. But to be a better person means that you're going to have to do some of the difficult stuff. And that means if you have trouble communicating, you have to work on it. if you are angry with somebody, you have to go and let them know, and then restore ma'at and figure out how do you get past that feeling, because we can't be stuck in our feelings. That's what everybody's saying right now. You're all up in your feelings, so we have to get past the feelings and try to be productive. So I just had to add my piece.
That's right.
On that
That's
last
right.
one.
That's right.
You know, forgiveness is so important because we always talk about wanting your heart to be lighter than a feather. You can't get into the hall of ma'at if you have all this stuff weighing on you that you haven't let go of. And letting go doesn't just mean, you know, releasing it on someone and walking away. It means that you really try to deal with the issue.
Restore your relationships.
Yes, because relationships are important. We all need
That's
each
right.
other.
That's right.
So with that, I'd like to end with the Amasu, so if everyone can stand with me. Put your left foot forward, your right foot back, left hand forward, right hand back. And we are going to say it in the ancient language of our ancestors, the Untu Unter or the Medunetter, or Medunetra, as some of you have heard it pronounced. And then we will also say it in English, so please repeat after me. Amasu and Pater.
Amasu and Pater.
Sauksu.
Sauksu.
Emitra.
Emitra.
And Pater.
And Pater.
Autu.
Autu.
Aura.
Aura.
Maketipa.
Maketipa.
Herura.
Herura.
Give yourself to the One Most High.
Give yourself to the One Most High.
Keep yourself daily for the divine.
Keep yourself daily for the divine.
And do it tomorrow.
And do it tomorrow.
Just as you did it today.
Just as you did it today.
To our winter.
To our winter.
Thank you to the divine.
Thank you to the divine.
And thank you to all of you.
Thank you to all of you.
So now I'd like to just make a couple of announcements.
Yes.
For those of you who might not remember or are not familiar, the Shrine of Ma'at and the Center for the Restoration of Ma'at are doing a trip to Kemet this year in August. More information is available on our website at centerforma'at.com. But it's important that you, if you're interested in attending, get your seats soon. We will be closing off the trip so that we can make sure we can get our airline tickets at a reasonable rate, and we can give all the information we need to the tour companies that we're working with. So if you are interested in traveling with us, it's from August 12th to August 23rd. It also includes airfare, all-inclusive meals, breakfast and dinner. Lunch is on your own if you choose to eat it. And then we also have a cruise on the Nile for 3 days on the Hapi River. So hopefully all of you would be interested in that. And of course there will be tours led by myself and Jabari Osaze. So if you want more information and you want to actually be there to see it in person, it's really important for you to join us this summer. So again, that's August 12th to the 23rd. Get your deposits in soon, and final payment will be due hopefully in the next month. So let us know if you're interested. www.centerforma'at.com. Also, Brother Jabari is being featured in his second documentary. It's called Hapi, and it was created by director Taki Grant, and it will be presented in full form for an open premiere at the Schomburg on March 28th from 6 to 10 p.m. So everyone is invited if you'd like to come and see the documentary. It focuses on the history of economics, starting from economics in ancient Kemet all the way to present day, and the effect that it has on our community. So please join us again. That's at the Schomburg on March 28th from 6 to 10 p.m. Any other announcements on that?
Yes, also, just to let you know that Baba Paor
Yes.
is also having his soul sweat on the same day from 12 to 2, I believe is the time. And so we really want you to, if you can, join him. How do you get in touch with Baba? Listen, if you reach out to us, we'll put you in touch with him. So I don't think he has a website going right now.
And for those of you who are not familiar with what a soul sweat is, it's an opportunity to do a full cleansing. It's a shut-in where you're in a spa for a couple of hours, and you do steaming, you do purging, you do cleansing, you do Hesi, prayer, chanting, and you do it with people that are in a safe space with others of like mind. So if you're looking for that opportunity to purge all of that stuff that's in you before the next so equinox is coming up, you might want to do it at that time because you know that the spring equinox is on its way.
Equinox is before that.
Okay, well, we're going to be in a new season.
That's right.
You want to try to handle this while you're in the new season and try to get all of this out of your system because you don't want to go into a new season with old stuff.
So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Please, hopefully, follow us on Facebook, on YouTube, For those of you who are on YouTube, leave a comment. Let us know. This is the first time we stream live on YouTube.
Yes.
Let us know what it's like. And I should also say, we don't do this for money, but we need money to do it, right? So please, can we pass this?
Sure.
If you're able to do so in the room, that'd be wonderful.
Yes.
And Anika, you were going to talk about people online?
Yeah, so if you're online, you'd like to make a donation to the shrine, you could do it in one of two ways. You could go to Cash App, and our handle is just $Shrine of Ma'at, so you can do it there. Or if you want to do it on PayPal, it's through our website, so it's www.shrineofma'at.org/events. You scroll to the bottom and you'll see a donation link, and you can make whatever donation is in your heart. So we so appreciate you for joining us, and we hope to see you again in 2 weeks. Twelve and Tur. Thank you.
Twelve and Tur. And we always say, you ain't got to go home, and you also don't have to get out of here. Please make sure that you just stay behind and get to know the family. It's of critical importance. Shemem Matef, Ankin Ma'at. It's the wisdom of the ancient text, Ptah Hotep.